in a Christian country, similar to the residency of the early Muslims under the Negus of Ethiopia, who was Christian and who therefore protected them with that natural compassion the Christians have for the Muslims. At that point, with a revitalized Anglican Council and a vitalized Islamic Council, you can begin to see the same transformation that happened first with Julius Caesar and then with his nephew Augustus Caesar, who completed the job, which was to get rid of the old governing oligarchy and to bring up a new governing oligarchy, which means placing the leading civic Muslims, nothing to do with ulama. Ulama, none of the business of, except to give guidance and counsel. The leadership of the Muslims is the strong among the Muslims, the richest, the landowning, the powerful, the ones who are feeding other people. They are the leadership of the Muslims. And they must come together, and they are the new aristocracy. They must buy the land, they must work the land, and they must be the core of Britain. The truth of the matter is, in a country in chaos, there's a Muslim directory that covers the whole of Britain, that shows that the Muslims, mutatis mutandis, through the whole social system of Britain, are integrated and interrelated in their business transactions. There's a curry guide for Britain, which is 2/3 Muslim, and it's the staple food of the working classes in Scotland. And that's the lowest aspect of the deen is the food, as the Jews know. When they give up everything, they still won't have the bacon. Now, if you look at this, you will see that the secret of a revived Britain has to have the Muslim community at the centre. They are to the present day what the Normans were to Anglo-Saxon England. They brought it law, social structure, and justice. As it was before that with the Danes, with the Danegeld, they brought Parliament itself to the British. So, with the rising up of the Muslims in Britain, you will find that the moral values of Islam will triumph, but that can only happen on the other side of usury. It can only happen by the beginnings of new institutions and new instruments of wealth. And that is to go from unreal fantasy money or psychotic money to substantive wealth, whether it's commodities or whether it's gold and silver. It has in itself intrinsic value, and that is at that point you eliminate usury. Everyone is talking about the present crisis in terms of the skin eruption of the poverty and the collapse of the money, whereas the reality is it's an organic sickness. So until you treat the organ that's diseased, you will not get health on the surface, and you will not get new life. And that is it. The instrument of all the collapse is usury. The instrument of the collapse is usury. Now, it will take only semi-conscious idiots should now be able to grasp that the present President of the United States is not in charge of anything. He is simply there to wag his finger, as he does every single day, and tell people to be good boys and wait till everything is put right back. He has indebted the American people in a way they have never been indebted in their history, in a way that would make the founding fathers of the United States turn in their graves. Mr. Sarkozy is doing the same in France, and this ghastly, corseted figure of our power-blind jaw-dropping, incompetent Prime Minister in Britain echoes the message of the third footman, now President of the United States. The future in Britain will take time to be a Muslim future. But the truth of the matter is, before anything, we want equity and justice and security for our people. And they have to realize they are not immigrants any more than anyone else in Britain is an immigrant. Something like 40 years ago, Hajj Abdul Bewley, who's our translator of our, with Hajj Aisha, of our wonderful new version of the Quran meanings, went with a delegation to see the Labour government about some iniquity they were at that point performing. And this Labour MP arrogantly turned to them and said, well, if you don't like it here, you'll go back to your own country. And Hajj Abdul Haq, whose name is Bewley, and has been therefore in England since 1066 at least, with the Norman conquest, turned to him and said, and where am I to go? Normandy? And of course the man, being a Labour MP, didn't even know the reference because he had not had any history at school. So he didn't even know what he was talking about. But that is the situation. The Muslims of Britain are the new Britons, as the Normans were the New Britons, and before that the Danes were the New Britons. So, this is the situation we're in. It's very positive. The most important thing is that there has to be we've still got this ghastly parliament, which is absolutely useless, but we have to get rid of the Prime Minister and his gang of illiterates. And to avoid civil war and to avoid greater anarchy in the streets than already exists, it's very important that that Mr. Cameron becomes Prime Minister. And I think we can say categorically that, from my position, no Muslim should vote Labour. That every intelligent Muslim will vote in a government that will strengthen the monarchy, restore ancient civil rights and civil liberties, including the right to remain silent and with innocence, and including the right to a trial, and the abolition of the Star Chamber tortures that the Blair dictatorship imposed on the British people. I am hopeful for the future, but it will be by a return to a great spiritual tradition which is already there. It's the same tradition that Henry VIII had when he got rid of papal governance. He also got rid of the myth that a piece of bread was a 2,000-year-old piece of flesh of Sidna Isa, of Jesus. And in the same way, we are now entering the Second Reformation, where we have to get rid of this atheist, usury priesthood and its sacrament of paper, money and debt, and bring back free people who will govern themselves under the leadership of a monarch. And if we do that, if there's a strong Christian monarch, believe me, in a generation or 2 generations, then Britain will slowly, slowly take on the new religion as it took it on after Henry VIII, but it struggled all the way through to Queen Elizabeth before it was fulfilled. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give the Muslims of Britain strength. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect the Christian Queen and her son, and his son in turn, and recall them to their highest duties. and to be the protector